say good morning and hope everybody is safe and healthy. And we have a little bit smaller group today, but there is a lot of golf being played. Hope everybody over the weekend was able to survive and without too many issues. But I will throw it over to Mr. Fry for some game time instructions, and then we'll get rolling.
Thanks, Jeff. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all well. Just a couple of quick notes before we get started. If you have technical issues, as we've done in the past, throw them into the chat feature, and I will do my best to help you through those. Just be aware, if you are having issues, it might be your Wi-Fi connection, but I will do my best to help. Throughout the presentation today, please remain muted so there isn't any background noise during the presentation. Also, by special request today, if you can turn your camera off so the speaker isn't distracted, if there's any movement going on, that would be awesome. If you have any questions, please put those into the chat feature, and I will prompt Clark as needed. And there's one button on your screen I'd like you all to avoid hitting. It says present now. Please do not click that. If you do, that will interrupt Clark's presentation. And finally, if you called into today's webinar, please send me an email at mfrey@pgahq.com. That way we can make sure you get your MSR credit for today. With that, I'll turn it back over to Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. And as a special treat today, we have upgraded our presenter from Jeff Kitty to the Clark Lewis. So Clark, once again, thanks so much to you and Tom and Jeff and Alice for putting all this together, taking the time to bestow a little bit more knowledge on everybody here in the Philly section. So we certainly do appreciate the time and the effort that you all have given. And then this way, you can do your thing, and then you can pass it on to yourself, my friend. So our orator and our presenter, Mr. Clark Lewis.
Thanks, and thanks everybody. And Jeff he has a full tee sheet, so he asked me to take over today, and I'm happy to do it. And I'm going to start today by singing the greatest patriotic song. Please join in the comfort of your own home to sing our national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming? And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? All right, we can play ball. Okay, everybody, I hope you joined me singing the greatest song of all. And we're going to jump right into Rule 20, resolving rules issues during the round. And if you can't do it by pugilism or fisticuffs, then we're going to do it by the rules. I remember, I'll start with a little anecdote. I remember when I was working for Tom Smith up at High Point, and somebody called in and said there's a fight going on out on the 12th hole, and I went out there, and there were 4 extremely elderly gentlemen engaged in a slow motion fight. They each had a golf club in their hands, and they were swinging and missing. And it wasn't too hard to break that one up. But we have a better way. And we're going to talk here under Rule 20 about resolving issues during the round and rulings on issues under the rules and in situations that are not covered by the rules, which we used to Say, just let's do what's fair. They used to call that equity. Here we go. And this is what it covers. You're going to, what do you do when you're seeking a ruling during the round? How do you proceed? Now you have match play situations. Can you decide issues by agreement, requesting a ruling from the committee, of course. And remember that in match play, and we can't stress this enough, and you're going to see a lot of repetition here today, so that we can embed this in your mind and your psyche. You may not play two balls in match play, only in stroke play when you're in doubt. And we'll see what happens when you do play two balls in match play. And of course, in stroke play, you don't have the right to decide issues by agreement, which you can do in match play. And as I mentioned, you can play two balls when you're uncertain what to do, but you have to do it the right way. And then we're going to talk about how the committee will decide which ball counts, and that's you guys. So that used to be a pretty difficult thing, but I'll tell you what, got to give the USGA credit and the RNA credit. They really, just like they've done with many, many other rules, I think they've laid this thing out so it's much, much easier to understand. And we'll go over that, as you will see. Now you have rulings by a referee or by the committee. And this is a new thing. We have the naked eye standard when using video evidence. Now, we're not taking call-ins anymore, but you do have occasion, you're going to go back to a film, and, how do you decide it? What do we call it? We're going to use this naked eye standard, which was another great idea. Can't praise them enough for doing this. And then we can correct rulings sometimes. It's possible to do that. And then disqualifying a player after the match or the competition is final. How do you do that? And what do you do when a situation is not covered by the rules? Matt, could I ask a question? Technical?
Yes.
I've got a little something on here that says stop sharing, but it also says hide. If I hit hide, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to do anything wrong here, so let me get down.
Even if you did, we could get back to the screen we needed to real quick.
Okay. All right. So anyway, nothing happened. Let me hit it again. Okay, that's perfect now. Now I can see the whole thing. Okay, so now we continue. And the rules purpose, we always start with that. What do players do when they have questions? Including procedures, which differ. Then the match play procedures are different than in stroke play a lot of times. And you allow a player to protect his rights and get a ruling at a later time. And that differs in match play than it does in stroke play. How do you protect your rights in both of these? We're going to talk about that. It covers the roles of referees who are authorized to decide questions of fact and apply the rules. That's the definition of a referee, sometimes called a rules official. And rulings from referee or the committee are binding on all players. So we're going to talk here at 20-20.1. When you're looking for a ruling, we want to speed things up, so you want to avoid unreasonable delay. And we're going to talk about issues, as we said, in match play and also stroke play. And we'll skip that question, but we'll come back to it. See how well we've learned this. Now, of course, the player must not unreasonably delay play when seeking help. Referee's not there, then players got to decide what to do and play on. But, as I said, you can protect, and we're going to say his or her rights, by asking for a ruling in match play, and we'll talk about how that's done, or by playing two balls in stroke play. We're going to talk about how that's done too. Specific ways of doing that. Now in match play, we're going to talk about, can you decide issues just by agreeing to them? and a ruling request is made, if it's made before the result is final. What do you do if it's made after the result of the match is final? And we make the match final in a number of ways. A lot of time, most of the time, it's when the results are announced. But that's to be decided by the committee. Should be decided beforehand, and put in as part of the conditions of the competition. And as we said before, in match play, you can't play two balls. Okay, so now these two players, we're going to see what they do. Now, they may agree how to decide something. So here, let's see what they do. The agreed, this player says, I dropped 2 club lengths from the cart path on the last hole. I mean, that's correct, isn't it? And the other guy said, yeah, that's how I do it. Well, no, that's not how to do it. But the agreed outcome, as it says here, is conclusive, even if it turns out to have been wrong under the rules. However, so long as the players did not deliberately agree to ignore any rule or penalty they knew applied. Now, here we have this one. Hey, I got 15 clubs. Hey, there's supposed to be a penalty. Just take one out of play and we'll just, the hell with it. I'm not going to call anything on you. Now you got a big time problem. Now, because that's what you call a mutual agreement to waive the rules. That's what we used to call it. You know what happens then. Now we're talking about a referee. If a referee is assigned to a match, the referee must rule on these things. And it usually comes to his or her attention in time, and the players must follow the ruling. If you don't have a referee and the players don't agree, this happens a lot, and I'm sure these things happen. I know I get a lot of calls up this way sometimes from golf professionals who are hosting a gap match or things like that, which seem to be very. My membership, I don't think we're able to play in gap matches yet. We're in gap, but we're not. We have to spend another year or something. But I know it sounds to me like they're pretty hotly contested. So either player may request a ruling under 20-1B2 or 20.1B2, and the player may make a request for a ruling. If a referee committee is not available in a reasonable time, the player is going to make a request. And here he is. What does he say here? I want a ruling on whether fixing aeration holes on the green is a penalty against you, and to see if you remember if that's a penalty. That's one of those exam records, that aeration hole thing. Now here's how you do it. You notify the opponent that you're gonna look for a later ruling when a referee or the committee becomes available. There's more to it than this. Now you have to make this ruling in time. There's a time factor here. It depends on when the player becomes aware of the facts, creating the rules issue. Now here's 2 situations. Now here's one when the player becomes aware of the facts before either player starts the final hole of the match. And we're going to talk about when a player becomes aware of the facts during or after completion of the final hole of the match. When the player becomes aware of the facts, the ruling or request must be made before either player makes a stroke to begin another hole. Okay, somebody does something wrong, you think it's wrong, you let them know before anybody makes a stroke on the next hole. Now here's a little example here. And player is entitled to know the status of his or her match at all times, or that a ruling request will be settled later. So, you got something in limbo there, but the opponent knows about it because you've made this proper request. That's why you got to make it in time to prevent a player from trying to apply penalties later in the match. I'll hold on to this until I need it. Well, I used to hear that all the time from my membership. Now, here's an example. During the first hole of a match, player A lifts his or her ball to check for damage. can do that, determines that it's cut and substitutes a new ball. Player B, the opponent, sees the original ball and privately disagrees with, underlined, disagrees with player A's assessment of the damage of that ball. However, player B decides to overlook the possible breach and says nothing. It's okay. But at the conclusion of the final hole, I see what's happening here. Player A is one up. And walking off the putting green, player B tells player A that, hey, he or she disagrees with the substitution player A made on the first hole and is going to make a request to the committee for a ruling. And what do we think is going to happen here? The committee should decide the ruling or request was not made in time, because player B was aware of the facts during the play of the first hole, and a stroke was made on the second hole. So that request for a ruling is going to be denied. The match stands as played, and player A is the winner, which is the way it should be. Now we're going to talk here about when the player becomes aware of the facts during or after completion of the final hole of the match. The ruling request must be made before the result of the match is final, which should be described explicitly on the conditions of the competition. When is it considered final? And it tells you to see Rule 3.2A5 to tell you about that. So here's 21B2/2, ruling made after the completion of the final hole of a match, but before the result of the match is final, may result in players resuming the match. How about that? If a player becomes aware of a possible breach of the rules by his or her opponent after completing what they thought was the final hole of the match, the player may make a request for a ruling. Now, if the opponent was in breach of the rules, we're going to adjust the match score, and that may require that the players return to the course to resume the match. And we're going to see a good example of it coming up here. So in a match, player B wins by a score of 5-4. We all know that he's 5 up with 4 to play, and that match is over. Now, on the way back to the clubhouse, and before the result of the match is final, it is discovered that player B had 15 clubs in his or her bag. Well, that's a breach. So at that point, player A requests a ruling, and the committee determines the ruling request by player A was made in time. Just found out about it. The players must return to the 15th hole and resume the match. And the score in the match is going to be adjusted by deducting 2 holes from player B. That's the max for that breach from player B. You know it's 4 strokes in stroke play, but it's 2 holes in match play. And player B, now instead of being 5 up with 4 to play, and we could go have a drink, he's now 3 up with 4 holes to play. Have a little different outcome. Okay. And we go on from there. If the player does not make the request in this time, a ruling will not be given by a referee or the committee, and the result of the holes in question will stand, even if the rules were applied in the wrong way. All right, so here we have player requests a ruling about an earlier hole. Now, this is only going to be given if all 3 of these things apply. The guy says, hey, while we were playing number 9, someone told me you fixed aeration holes on the green. Is that true? And then the guy says, you mean I can't do that? So player requests a ruling, and the opponent breached. If the opponent breached 3-2D, that means he gave the wrong number of strokes taken, or he failed to tell the player about a penalty, whether he knew it or not. request is based on facts the player was not aware of before either player made a stroke to begin the hole being played, or if between holes the hole just completed. Okay, now there's another facet to this. After becoming aware of these facts, the player makes a request for a ruling in time as set out above. In other words, you have to make that request before anybody tees off on the next hole. In this, when you become aware of it. Now, let's talk about after the result of the match is final. The committee will give the player a ruling. Now, we've got the last one. You've got 3 different facets as to when that ruling will be made by the committee or the referee. And here you have two contingencies to deal with for when it applies, and both of these have to apply. The request is based on facts the player was not aware of before the result of the match was final, and the opponent breached, well, number one, giving wrong number of strokes taken, or failing to tell the player about a penalty, and knew of the breach before the result of the match was final. Knew about it. Okay. And then there's no time limit here on giving such a ruling. Okay, now here's that 2-ball thing. And the rules issues in match play says that a player who was uncertain about the right procedure in match is not allowed to play out the hole with 2 balls. Why do you think that is? Well, because now you've got a super limbo here, because you're waiting for a ruling, and you've got 2 balls working to try to figure this whole thing out, and that's going to be a problem. So you can only, as it says here, you can only do this in stroke play, and there's a strict procedure in stroke play to do it. I'm sure you all know about it. Now let's talk about this question that we have here. In a singles match, player A asks player B if he agrees the area where A's ball lies is in ground under repair. B says he is not sure and suggests A play 2 balls. Remember, this is singles match now, so that they can get a ruling when they are done with their round. A agrees and says he wants to score with the ball he takes free relief with. Well, if you could do that. He correctly takes relief under 16-1 by dropping another ball outside the area they both agree is in question. Plays his original ball first, then the second ball, and he makes 5 with the original ball and 4 with the second ball. The toughie, if you've never had it before, the correct ruling is, if the area where A's ball lay is determined to be ground under repair, A's score for the hole is 4. Otherwise, it is 5. Let's see. The answer B is A's score for the hole is 5. C, player A loses. Now we're looking for the correct ruling. Player A loses the hole because a second ball played in such circumstances in match play is a wrong ball. Both players are disqualified because players are responsible to know the rules, and they have agreed to a procedure in a match the rules do not allow. Now, what do we think is the right answer here? This is not an easy one, but the answer is B. And why is that? Because you can't do from the get-go. This is completely you can't do it. You can't operate with this ball. So it doesn't matter what they decide to do, how that player decides to proceed. If he makes the right, if he says, look, I want to announce which one, he does all those things right, doesn't make any difference. It's going to be the original ball that's going to count. Just throw all the rest out because you can't do it. And that's the way the rules read. Here's the next question, but we'll go back to that. Now we're talking about stroke play. And what obviously you can't decide by an agreement with your fellow competitor, with the person you're playing with. You can't decide, okay, let's see. You can't do that, because now you are affecting the play because you're playing against the field. But you are encouraged to help. And, advice about the rules, like this player wants to know and is asking, there's nothing against the rules to give advice about the rules. But they can't do it by agreement. And, of course, any agreement that they reach is not binding on the player, referee, or committee. And you should raise any rules issues with the committee before returning your scorecard. You have a doubt about anything, check it out before you turn that score in and leave the area. So they should, you're out there and you've got 150 players out there, and you have to protect the field, as we call it, protect the field. Now, if you know or believe another player has breached a rule, and that the other player does not recognize or is ignoring it, this might not be a wonderful thing to do, but and for the rest of your round, you're not going to talk to each other. It's going to be a kind of an ugly situation, but you got to do it. Players should tell the other player, the player's marker, referee, or committee. And it should be done promptly after the player becomes aware of it, and no later than before the other player returns his or her scorecard, unless it was not possible to do so. You should be doing it. You should be saying it, bringing it up when it happens or after it has happened. Try to stop it before it happens. Be a good thing. I've had to do it when I was playing, in the years when I used to be a player, and it's not fun. Not fun. But you have to do it. Now, if you fail to do that, the committee can disqualify that player because you're violating the standards of player conduct. If it decides this was serious misconduct. Now, here we talk about, yes, you can play two balls here when you are uncertain about the right procedure while playing a hole. You can complete the hole with two balls without penalty. Player must decide to play two balls after the uncertain situation arises. And remember this is paramount. And before making a stroke. Before making a stroke. Once you make a stroke, can't do it. We'll see. Now you should choose, it says should there, you should choose which ball will count if the rules allow the procedure used for that ball by announcing it to your marker or to another player before making a stroke. Okay, here we go. There's a little area that this young lady thinks she's entitled to. Should have been marked. It isn't. Now, if the player does not choose in time, now remember this, not the original ball, but the ball played first is treated as the ball chosen by default. And we've talked about default when you drop a ball in your relief area and you don't choose a place. This is another example of default. So it's the ball played first. And we'll go over this very assiduously through the rest of this rule. And now you have to report the facts of the situation to the committee, and you got to do that. You must report this to the committee before returning the scorecard, even if you score the same with both balls. Now, some of the older fellas out there will remember that at one time, if you scored the same with both balls, you didn't have to. But that was thought through much better, and now, of course, it doesn't matter. You now must, even if you score the same with both balls, report that to the committee. And if you don't, look what happens. You are becoming a spectator, or having a drink, or slamming your trunk. Now, here we go. If the player made a stroke before deciding to play a second ball, this rule no longer applies. Can't do it. And you see this you see this all the time. So if you're trying to adjudicate this, and we'll talk about later rules for the committee to adjudicate this situation. Remember, did you make a stroke before you announced? then don't bother me with it. Just take it away. I can't give you a rule. The score that counts is the score with the ball played before the player decided to play the second ball. But the player gets no penalty in this case for playing the second ball. So you make the stroke and then oh, wait a minute, I better play a second ball. You're not going to get a penalty. You're going to get the stroke that counts with the ball played before the player decided to play the second ball. Could be penalty involved there, and but the player gets no penalty for playing the second ball. Now, I'm insulting your intelligence. This particular one here, but we have, when we do the PGA USGA rules workshops, there are folks taking those courses that are new to golf, fairly new to golf. And you know that a second ball played under this rule is not the same as a provisional ball. Okay. Now, here is how to resolve the issue. You're going to need to know this. And you can, believe me, if you need to refer to the rule, it's not a bad idea when some irate players come in and you have situations like this. It's not a bad idea if you need to refer to the rule. When a player plays two balls under, the committee will decide the player's score for the hole in the following way. The score with the ball chosen, whether by the player or by default, counts if the rules allow the procedure used for that ball. Okay? That's the one that's going to count if you proceeded correctly under the rules. If the rules do not allow the procedure for that ball, that means the ball chosen, obviously verbally by the player, the score with the other ball played counts if the rules allow the procedure used for that ball. Well, this can be a little tough as we go through this to wrap your head around, but that's why you want to read it a number of times. Now, if the rules do not allow the procedures used for each of the two balls, the score with the ball chosen, once again, you're going to revert to that, counts. And guess what's coming next? I bet you can't guess. Unless there was a serious breach in playing that ball from a wrong place, in which case the score with the other ball counts. We have a serious breach when we had to revert. Now, what do you think is going to happen? What's the next slide going to say? Yeah, if there's a serious breach in playing each ball, boy, you really messed up from a wrong place. Well, once again, you're going to be you can join the gallery. You are disqualified. That's I don't know. That's never happened to me, but I'm sure we could. Maybe we'll ask Tom if that's happened to him. Tom, have you ever seen a situation where that player is disqualified for two serious breaches?
I think we might have had one recently. Maybe it was in a section event at Lancaster Country Club. Maybe I could be wrong. I thought we had. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe they didn't play a second ball. It was a serious breach of the penalty area rule. But no, I don't. I can't recall having a case where someone played both balls and got them both so very wrong that they were disqualified.
Okay. All right. So we go on. Now, once again, the strokes with the ball that does not count, including strokes made and any penalty strokes, and we always have this statement here, solely from playing that ball. That means things that would get you a penalty would be if you gave advice to somebody or if you played a wrong ball. Those, don't worry about that. They do not count in the player's score for that hole. Now, this is important. What does it mean? Rules allow the procedure used. It means that either the original ball was played as it lies and play was allowed from there, and it was perfectly fine, played it as it lies. Or the ball that was played was put in play under the right procedure, in the right way, and in the right place under the rules. You know, we have the procedures, then we have the right way. Did you drop it the right way? In the right place under the rules. Now let's go over this question, see how well we've done. Now we're looking once again for what's false. I hate these, but what are you going to do? If a player, uncertain whether her ball is in ground under repair, plays that ball and then decides she wants to play the second ball, she will never score with the second ball. Let's think about that. A player, uncertain whether her ball was in ground under repair, decided to play a second ball. Before making a stroke, she announced the ball she wanted to count was the one with which she took relief. If the rules allow the procedures she used with each ball, her score with the ball she took relief with will count. A lot of words there. What do you think? What do we think about that? Before making a stroke, the player should announce which ball she wants to count if the rules allow the procedure. If the player does not announce that choice in time, the player's original ball is treated as the ball chosen by default. Which one did we say was going to count if you don't announce? If the player plays two balls under Rule 20-1C3, and one of them is played under a procedure the rules allow, but the other is not, it does not matter whether the player chose a ball to count or not. The score with the ball played using the procedure the rules allow will count. It's a tough one. Which do we think is false? And the answer is C, because we learned that when you do this, if you don't announce it, it's the ball you play first that's treated as the ball chosen by default. This is when you don't announce. And how many times have you had questions from junior players or players who are on high school teams that are told to do this and don't do it in the right way? The coach does not. This is something that has to be really gone over and drilled into players, young players, how to use this rule. Okay. Any questions?
None have been submitted.
Matthew? Sounds like Gunsmoke. Nobody remembers that. Okay, here we go. We're going to plod on here. How are we doing? How am I doing here? No, not bad. 22. A referee is an official named by the committee to decide questions of fact. That's what he is. There's a player who, or an official here who needs to bend very far down to see the place to drop the ball, but he can correct that. His ruling on the facts must be followed, even if he says something wrong. And a player has no right to appeal a referee's ruling. However, there's Ron Hickman, our former chairman. I don't know, what is he doing? He's pointing a line out to somebody. The referee can seek the committee's help before making a ruling or refer a ruling to the committee for review. And there have been times when I got on that walkie-talkie and said that I was unsure about something, and there's nothing wrong with that. You're not losing face if you're, as a rules official, if you're not. I had to do it with a ruling with Lefty, and I had to get on there, and I didn't get any help, but we made the ruling. But he's not required to do so. Okay, and you can see you can check Section 6C about committee procedures. A committee can limit the scope of a referee's authority and change this. Now, if there's no referee there, the ruling will be given by the committee, and the committee's ruling is final. Okay. Now, if the committee can't come up with it, and I guess I've heard about things that have been referred like this. I don't think there's too many, because I think we got things pretty well covered with these two organizations. Well, they can have some kind of a weapon, a call to the higher authority. Now we got the naked eye standard, which we talked about before. If the facts shown on a video couldn't be reasonably seen with the naked eye, the video evidence will be disregarded. We had that thing where Tiger, I think he was penalized because his ball moved downward, and you could see it with the film, but he couldn't see it, and that wasn't fair. So that's changed. It's been kinder and gentler, and even if it indicates a breach of the rules. But even when video evidence is disregarded under the naked eye standard, a breach of the rules will still be found if the player was otherwise aware of the facts, such as where the player felt the club touch the sand in a bunker, even though that could not be seen by the naked eye. So if you feel that you've dragged that club back in the bunker and you felt that, well, I guess you couldn't see it, but you felt it. Okay, and just, could this be Bob Corbel given a ruling here?
That's Bullet Bob.
Bullet Bob, okay, one of the best. Okay, one of our former, a long-time gentleman on our rules committee, and he was the tournament director, I believe, for the Philadelphia section many, many years ago. And if a ruling by the committee is found to be wrong, what do you do if it's wrong? Now, he would not ever give a rule. I don't know why we have him in there for the wrong ruling, but he would never do that. The ruling will be corrected if possible under the rules. Now, if it's too late, the wrong ruling stands. Now, when can you correct it? If a player takes an action in breach of a rule based on a reasonable misunderstanding of what the referee's instructions were during a round or while play is stopped, such as lifting the ball in play when not allowed to, well, what do you think? There's no penalty, and the instruction is treated like a wrong ruling. That's one very interesting thing thrown in there. Now, when can you correct it? And you can correct it. It goes into this. You can correct it specifically, and you go to section 6C in committee procedures. And I hope by now you all have the app for your telephone. If you haven't, what are you waiting for? I think it costs a couple bucks. So go on there and get that, because it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But there's no time limit on disqualifying a player for serious misconduct or deliberately ignoring a known breach or penalty. In other words, you cheated, or agreeing with another player to ignore any rule that they know applies. That's, once again, mutual agreement to waive the rules, as we used to call it. And this may be done after the result of the match is final. Okay. And then there you go to 21B3. Now, normally in stroke play, normally it says, when it says that, there's going to be some kind of exception. A penalty must not be added or corrected after a stroke play competition has closed. That's it. However, where are we going to go? When the results become final in the way set by the committee, which you must do. How are you going to do it? Number of ways. In stroke play, now if you have a stroke play qualifier and it's going to be followed by match play, that might be immediately followed by match play. The competition is closed for when the player has teed off to start his or her first match. So normally you wouldn't get a DSQ there, but you'll see that it could be. But a player must be disqualified even after the completion or the competition if returned a scorecard for any hole lower than actually taken for any reason, and it goes on now, other than This is the new rule to help you. Failing to include one or more penalty strokes that, before the competition closed, the player did not know about. And that rule has evolved. At one time, you were gone if you did this. And then we said something. I never want to go back and say what we used to do if I can help it. But now this makes a lot of sense, and it's kinder and gentler. He knew before the competition had closed that the return scorecard showed a handicap that was higher than the actual handicap, and this affected the number of handicap strokes. Now, this player, as you see up there, must be disqualified. If he knew this, okay, he cheated. Or if he was in breach of any other rule with a penalty of disqualification. There's 3 out of 4 different scenarios here. Obviously, if you're guilty of a penalty of disqualification, that the rule that gives you that we just mentioned, the kinder, gentler rule, you can't use that if what you did, a penalty that you had, was a DSQ. Or deliberately agree, once again, you agree with another player to ignore a rule that you knew applied, a rule or penalty. That's when you can disqualify after the competition is closed. Or you got this serious misconduct after the competition has closed. Somebody is doing something extremely bad out there. And there's a definition about serious misconduct. I would suggest that you look at it. Now, you've got situations that aren't covered by the rules. So the committee should consider all the circumstances, obviously. Treating the situation, you want to be reasonable, fair, and consistent. You want to treat all the players the same way. And that's what you want to do. Do we have any questions here?
None have been submitted.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay. That's Rule 20. Now, give you a chance to take a little breather here. And are there any questions at all under Rule 20? And while we do that, Matthew, what do I do? Escape here?
Yes.
Okay, and then what do? I go to Rule 22 down below, is that it?
Yes.
Oh. Oh my gosh. You have no idea how happy that makes me. I didn't destroy the whole thing. Slideshow from the beginning. Give me about 4 more years of doing this, and I won't have to ask you for any advice. Okay. Here we're going to go with Rule 22, foursomes and 4-ball. And yeah, of course, 4-ball, that's what you play. That's what when you put on your conditions of the competition, 4-ball, invariably a member says, wait a minute, I thought we were playing better ball of partners. And you get that, and I won't pander to ignorance, so I always make that player feel particularly foolish and explain to him. So we go on. Here's your overview. Now, foursomes, also known as alternate shot. That's okay to say. Got the overview. We're going to talk about how either player can act for the side. And you have to alternate. What happens when you don't? Interesting here about starting your round. There's an exam wrecker in here. And I know because it wrecked, I got one wrong on this. And partners can share clubs. This is something that, you rarely see, but can happen. Now we have, obviously, when you're doing this kind of situation, you're going to have to modify some rules, the first 20 rules, because you're alternating shots and there's things happening here that you have to, who tees off first, blah, 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 what about that? So you're going to have to change it. And what you can and cannot do for a partner. And where the players must be when starting a round. That's the interesting part of this one. And you have circumstances when you can share clubs. And it covers either match or stroke play. And what is it? It's two partners compete together as a side. That's a side. By alternating in making strokes at a single ball. At a single ball. We had a foursomes thing, and we had a playoff or a shootout, and we had the eighth flight. Everybody knocked their ball down there, and the player A in the eighth flight hit his ball in the middle of the fairway. And while everybody was looking, player B, now keep in mind, both these players were 25 plus handicappers. Player B came over and picked up the ball and put his ball down. And I said, wait a minute. I said, what are you doing there? He said, oh, I don't like that ball he teed off with. I want to use my ball. I was particularly intrigued by this because, you know, these were both just about 28 handicap players, and they were very they really had problems figuring out that they didn't want to play with a certain kind of golf ball. But we replaced that ball with a one-stroke penalty. Okay. Now, the rules for this form of play are essentially the same, requiring the partners to alternate and play out the hole with alternate shots. We'll go over that question later. Now, this is a very good, looks like Bubba there, and I don't know some of these other players, but Tom, do you recognize these players? I always like to know who's in those pictures.
Well, you got it's Overton. Jeff Overton is with Bubba.
Okay.
And then you got Miguel Jimenez, and then the other one is Hansen, Peter Hansen, I believe.
Okay. I couldn't see Jimenez, that his little ponytail, so I couldn't tell. Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Now, so you have partners in match or stroke play. Two partners compete by playing one ball in alternating order on each hole. And 1 through 20 rules apply, but they're modified by specific rules which follow. Now, in a variation, this could be threesomes, where an individual player competes against a side of two partners who play alternating shots under these specific rules. Threesomes. Okay, this guy's he feels that he's invincible. So he's going to try to do that. Although in this country, we're not quite as good at playing these alternating shot things. So maybe that single player there might have an advantage. Okay. And once again, either partner may take any allowed action for the side before the stroke is made, such as to mark the spot of a ball and lift, replace, drop, and place the ball. Either one. No matter which partner's turn it is to play next for that side. So it doesn't matter here when this drop is, well, of course, this is a drop that would be an improper drop now, because we know that we'll be updating these pictures here shortly, that it has to be dropped from knee height. Now, this is interesting. What about that club length thing? We know that at the club length, it's your longest club other than your putter. But what about in partner play? And here it says, either partner's longest club, except a putter, may be used for defining the teeing area. You know, you get the imaginary teeing area with the club length, or determining the size of a relief area. Interesting. I'm telling you, they think of everything, these guys that write the rules. And I have an idea who that is, with different hairdo. A partner now, as both partners compete as one side playing only one ball, a partner and his or her caddy may help the other partner in any way that the other partner's caddy is allowed to help, like to give or be asked advice, and to take other actions allowed under Rule 10. But you can't give any help that the other partner's caddy is not allowed to give under the rules. Now, any action taken in breach of the rules by either partner or either caddy applies to the side. Get that into your mind. So it's either partner or either caddy that's going to apply to the side. You want to call them a team, you can do that. But we like to call them a side. Now, this is important. Stroke play, only one of the partners needs to certify the side score, whole scores on the scorecard. Only one. When you turn that in, when you're doing scoring, only one. One partner must play first for the side from the teeing area of all odd-numbered holes. You decide this in advance. And the other player must play first from the side from the teeing area of all even-numbered holes. After the side's first stroke from the teeing area, the partners must alternate strokes for the rest of the hole. You know, this is 101 stuff. You know this. Now, if a stroker is canceled, here we have somebody playing from outside the teeing ground, or otherwise does not count, except when a stroke is made in the wrong order, in breach of the rule, the same partner who made the stroke must make the next stroke for the side. Okay, so if the stroke is canceled or doesn't count, and this stroke is not going to count because you're playing from outside the teeing ground. Teeing area, I should say. I owe $1. And this is important. If the side decides to play a provisional ball, it must be played by the partner whose turn it is to play the side's next stroke. Obviously, because if that provisional ball, if you went down there to look for the ball and you couldn't find it, you'd have to come back, and the other player, if player B had hit that ball, player A would have to tee off. It must be played by the partner whose turn it is to play the next side stroke. So now you can quickly go on. If you don't find the original, you're going to play the provisional. It was played by the proper partner. Okay. Any penalty strokes for the side do not affect the partner's alternating order of play. And here's a good one. And I've heard of this happening. You know, guys playing with possibly with a player who's not too good, and going to surely go into a water hazard. He says, go down there and whiff the ball on purpose, and it'll be our turn to play, and I'll be able to play. But look what's happened here. A player may not change whose turn it is to play by intentionally missing the ball. Therefore, if a player has intentionally missed the ball, he or she has not made a stroke, and it's still his or her turn to play. All kinds of ways that people think to get over on the rules, but can't do that. Now, in stroke play, the side must correct the mistake if you've played in incorrect order. The right partner must make a stroke from where the side made the first stroke in the wrong order. Got to correct that. In stroke play, you're just going to lose I should say in match play, you're going to lose the hole. The stroke made in wrong order, and any more strokes before the mistake is corrected don't count. And if the side doesn't correct the mistake, you know, it's just like playing a wrong ball or something like that, and you know, in individual play, before making a stroke to begin another hole or for the last hole of the round, you're going to hear this quite often, before returning its scorecard, the side is disqualified. Now, here's that exam wrecker. The side may choose which partner will play from the first teeing area in starting the round, unless the terms of the competition say which partner must play first. And I don't know, I hadn't gone over that, and I had it on the exam, and I said, wait a minute, the committee can't tell us how to start. This is up to us. But you see right here, yes, they can. Okay. Now, when does it start? It starts when that partner makes a stroke to start the side's first hole. When you make a stroke at the ball. Now, this is interesting. Now, Rule 5-3 applies differently to each partner based on who will play first for the side. How does that work? The partner who will play first must be ready to play at the starting time and starting point. And you know, that means they have to be at the tee, in that teeing area. So, and usually it's what we do, we have an area in blue paint or blue poles. Got to be in there with a club and a ball. You must start at and not before that time. But now what about the player's partner in this? The partner who will play second must be present at the starting time, either at the starting point or on the hole near where the ball played from the teeing area is expected to come to rest. I went to Ireland in 1988 with, there were eight of us, 8 PGA professionals. Tom Smith, I'm sure he's there, remember, and Dick. Went over there, and we'd play our 4-ball in the morning. Then we'd have a couple of Guinnesses and have our cheese toasties. We'd go out and play foursomes in the afternoon, and we did it this way. Mostly good players. We sort of figured out where that ball was going to go, and we played in rapid time. And by doing that, by being out waiting for that drive to come down or that second shot to come down, if we were going to play the third one. So that's how that works. Now, I guess if you were out there and, you know, God forbid the player A is teeing off and it's the ball out of bounds, well, then you got to come back. Got to get on your horse and run back. If either partner is not present in this way, the side is in breach of Rule 5-3, and that's because you're going to have all the penalties that go with 5-3, the 5 minutes and all the other things that go with it. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about sharing clubs. So we modify the rule to allow partners to share clubs, so long as the total number of clubs they have together is not more than 14. I don't know. I can't see good players doing this, using other players' clubs. I think that they'd be wanting to have all their selection of wedges and things out there to help them, but you can do it as long as it's no more than 14. Let's go over our question. Once again, this odious false thing, and we're talking about foursomes. If the partner whose turn it is to play in stroke play makes a stroke at a wrong ball, the same player must make the stroke to correct that mistake. Now, is that false? If the side starting time is 9 o'clock, only the partner who will play first is required to be present at the starting point at 9. Now, we just talked about that. Think about that one. Is that false? If partners play in the wrong order in match play, their opponents may choose to accept the stroke made in the wrong order or cancel that stroke and require the stroke to be made by the correct partner. That sound right? Can they do that? On the second hole, partner A is hitting the tee shot for the side. If the side decides to play a provisional ball, it must be played by partner B. Well, I think we're pretty good with that. What's our answer here? Yeah, you can't do that. You can't choose to, no, as we saw before in individual match play. Okay, we go on. Any questions about Rule 22?
No, sir.
Okay, Matthew, we proceed. We're going to talk about the 4-ball. There's a lot of things in 4-ball here. This is going to take a little more time, but we're in good shape. Okay. Now, so we have all these things: overview, scoring. When does a round start? When is it completed? Can one or more partners, they can represent, that. Now, you do certain things, going to affect your partner. Order of play, share clubs, when a penalty applies to one partner only, or to both partners. And that's what's going to be, to me, that's the hardest thing to get your head around, is that 23-8, but we'll go over that in detail. So here are the modifications again. Play a 4-ball match. And stroke play scoring. Scorecards. We're going to go over this because this gets a little complicated in how the committee is going to handle scorecards in this situation, and we'll go over that once again in great depth. And only one partner is required to be present. You can play, you know that. Your partner is deathly sick and you got to get it in. You go out and you're playing against the other two. But what do you do about the handicapping? I'll talk to you about that too. All right, the order of play, when they can share clubs, and how it affects when you do something, how it affects your partner. Okay, now what is it? It's 4-ball. It's where partners compete as a side, and each is playing a separate ball. The side score for the whole is the lower score of the partners. Once again, 101 stuff. And we'll go on this question. We're going to go over that question later. Okay, 4-ball is a form of play involving partners where two partners compete together as a side, playing your own ball, and the lower score counts. Okay, and all the other rules apply to this form except as modified. Now, a variation of this form is called a best ball. So where an individual player competes against a side or two or three partners, and each player plays his own ball. So this player's, in this case, he might not have all his advantage there because these players are playing their own ball. They're not going to be constrained by some of the strictures of alternate shot play in America. We're getting better at it, though. So the best ball with 3 partners on a side, each reference to the other partner means the other 2 partners. Okay. Here we go. This is how we're scoring. Scorecard, and some exceptions. When this is what we do when both partners hole out or otherwise complete the hole. When only one partner holes out or otherwise completes the hole. When neither partner holes out or otherwise completes the hole. Okay. This is match play and stroke play. When both partners hole out, the lower score is the side score for the hole. So here we have John got 5, Kate got 4. That's fine. You can do that. When the partner's score is the side score for the hole, the other partner does not need to hole out. In this case, John got 3 and Kate got an other, so only the 3 has to go down. That's what's going to be what the committee will accept. When neither partner holes out or otherwise completes the hole under the rules, well, you don't have a score. So what do you think is going to happen there? There's that. In match play, the side loses the hole unless the opposing side already had conceded or otherwise lost the hole. And in stroke play, you know what's going to happen there. You're disqualified unless the mistake is corrected in time. Okay. Failure to hole out. Okay. It's the side's responsibility, certain things, and the committee has responsibility for other things as far as the scorecard is concerned. Now, the side has to enter on a single scorecard, and in a handicap competition, each partner's handicap must be entered on the scorecard. You know that in individual handicap competition, you must put down your handicap on that scorecard. You have to, or make sure that it's on there and it's correct from the committee. You have to do that. But in this case, since you have a partner, both those handicaps must be entered on the scorecard. Okay. Now, the gross score of at least one partner must be entered on the scorecard. And, you know, sometimes you have dots in there. You have the dots for the players where they get strokes. There's no penalty for entering more than one partner's score on the scorecard. You can do that. I played years ago in some ladies tournaments, and unfortunately they didn't like the idea of having two scores down, and they were trying to disqualify players for doing that. And I had to inform them that that was against the rules. So you can do that. Now, this is very important. Each score on the scorecard must be clearly identified as the score of the individual partner who made it. If this is not done, the side is disqualified. So in other words, when you get a scorecard that looks like this, which I get constantly up here in our 3-ball, because I have players up here that just have never been taught any differently, and they can't see the difference between doing this. And of course, we all know what the difference is. You know, if one partner has done something wrong, and you know, how do you determine who made the score? And so I'll tell them this. I make a big to do about it on the first tee, but eventually, as they hand me the scorecard, I'll get maybe out of 60 scorecards, I might get 10 like this, and I just give it back to them. I just won't accept it. I'm not going to take it and disqualify them. I just say, this is unacceptable. You have to, hey, and up here you'll be saying something like this. What am I supposed to do? You mean I can't do that? And I'll say, no, you can't. You got to go back, sit down with your partner and figure it all out, and then you can hand it to me. Okay. Now, but only one partner needs to certify this, to sign it, to certify the side scorecard. Got the marker down there, and then you have the one player. You don't have to have both players do it. Now, the committee, even though our members usually do this, we've given them a scorecard, and we have the team score down there, or side score if you wish. I think I'm going to change my verbiage to side score. I like that better. It's more in keeping with the rules. The committee is responsible for bringing that score down to that team score and applying any handicap. And they have to apply the handicaps in the handicap situation. That's where you go bleary-eyed after a while trying to figure them out as you check them over. Now, if only one score is entered for a hole, that score is the score that counts for the side, obviously. Now, if those scores are different, the lowest gross or net score for that hole counts for the side, obviously. Okay? If both partners put their score down. So here you have a 3 and a 4. So if you know what to do. If the 3 gets a stroke, then 2 goes in the net part. If the 4 gets a stroke, and well, you know what to do. Now, if both scores are the same, and this I'm going to come back to this later because it does impinge on some of the things that you might have to do. The committee may count either score. If the score used is found to be wrong for any reason, the committee will count the other score, and that's if both scores are the same. Remember that, because there's going to be a situation where this will happen and the scores are not the same, and we'll go over that. So you got that? Okay. Now, the side scorecard, if the score that counts for the side is not clearly identified as the score for the individual partner who made it, yeah, I guess you could disqualify them if you wanted. Just take it. Thank you very much. And you are disqualified. Well, I don't know if I'd do that. I think I would say, to me, it's just the same as when you're going over the scores. When we're trying to make sure the scores are correct in scoring, and something's wrong, we let the player take care of mistakes before he turns it in. So I would definitely suggest that you give this back to to the side and have them correct things and before they turn it in. That's just my interpretation of this. Now, if the score that counts for the side, if that is not clearly identified as the score, if that partner is disqualified relating to the play of the hole, then that side is, then the side is disqualified. Okay. Now, is an exception. Rule 11-2 does not apply in this situation when a player's partner has already completed the hole and the player's ball in motion needs to be holed to lower the side score for the hole by 1 stroke. If any person deliberately deflects or stops the ball at a time when there is no reasonable chance it can be holed, there's no penalty to that person and the player's ball does not count for the side. No reasonable chance that it can be holed. Okay. Any questions about 23-1 or 23-2?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, when does the round start in this form of play, in the 4-ball play? This girl has a beautiful, beautiful finish. Okay. When the round starts, when it ends, when the hole's completed. It starts when one of the partners makes a stroke to start his or her first hole. Now you can see where we're going to go here. You know, suppose somebody's late, you know, when can they join? We're going to cover it. Or in match play, the round ends, I should say, in match play when either side has won the match, obviously. In stroke play, when the side completes the final hole, either by both partners holing out or by one partner holing out on the final hole and the other partner choosing not to do so. Okay. Now, in match play, a side has completed a hole when both partners have holed out or had their next strokes conceded, or either side has conceded the hole. I guess that player is getting his ball tossed back to him. Stroke play, a side has completed a hole when one of the partners has holed out and the other partner has either holed out or chooses not to do so. Any questions about that? And that seems pretty easy to understand, but I'll take any questions. Okay. 23-4. Now, once again, we alluded to this before. The side may be represented by one partner during all or any part of a round. It's not necessary for both partners to be present, or if present, for both to play on each hole. So, you know, you take this hole. You could say that. However, if the partner is absent and then arrives to play, that partner may start the play for the side only between the play of 2 holes. Now, what precisely does this mean? In match play, that would mean before any player in the match starts the hole. So if the partner arrives only after any player on either side of the match has started play of the hole, that partner is not allowed to play for the side until the next hole. Okay? This is match play. Anybody starts to play. It'll be a little different in stroke play. In stroke play, before the other partner starts the hole, if the partner arrives only after the other partner has started play of the hole, the arriving partner is not allowed to play for the side until the next hole. Now, that means we're talking about stroke play here. Player A and B, which is a side, they play their shots, and player C is there. Player D hasn't arrived. If before player C plays the shot, if player D arrives, that's fine. But if player C puts the ball in play, makes a stroke at it, then player D cannot join him during, you can't, you're not allowed to play for that side until the next hole. However, the arriving partner, who is not allowed to play the hole, may still give advice or help the other partner, or take any other actions for the other partner on that hole. Okay? The drops, the placements, things like that. Now, this is interesting, and it was a long time. We used to we would look these things up, I think, in the handicap book. But here you have a 4-ball match played with handicaps, and you're going to play off the low ball. Now, if the player with the lowest handicap is unable to play, it's not going to make any difference. The absent player is not disregarded, given that he or she may start play for the side between play of 2 holes. So, I mean, this is how it works. So that's how you're going to continue the match. Interesting. All right. Any questions there? We are breezing along. Okay. 23-5. You can take any actions. You can do whatever the partner would do, but you're responsible for those actions, the player. Although each player on the side must play his or her own ball, the player may take any action concerning the partner's ball that the partner is allowed to take. Mark, lift, replace, drop, place. Okay. And the player and the player's caddy may help the partner in any way that the partner's caddy is allowed to help. Advice, things like that. To give and be asked for advice and to take other actions. Preparing for making the stroke under Rule 10. But he can't give any other help that the partner's caddy is not allowed to give under the rules. Now, in stroke play, partners must not agree with each other to leave a ball in place, this backstopping thing on the putting green, to help either of them or any other player. Can't do that. We know that. And you're responsible for the player's actions. Any action taken by the player concerning the partner's ball or equipment is treated as having been taken by the partner. So, the partner is in breach of a rule and gets the resulting penalty if the player's action, that's the other person, does something wrong. You're going to get the penalty. And it's the way it usually is in other forms of play too. Examples of this are when you're improving the conditions affecting the stroke to be made by the partner. You go in there and start hacking away at those weeds in there. Partner's getting that penalty. Or if you've accidentally caused the partner's ball to move, there's a penalty there. You got to proceed. Or you don't mark, you just lift the ball for whatever reason without marking it. And it applies but to player's caddy, because the caddy is your alter ego, just as your partner is. Okay. Now, if they affect the play of both the player's own ball and the partner's ball, we are going to jump shortly to Rule 23.8, and it'll find out whether there is a penalty for both partners. This has been simplified to some extent, but to my mind, it is still a daunting concept. And this is where we're going to find that. That's the last rule we're going to cover today. Any questions there? Don't be bashful. Okay. 23.6, the order of play. And here it says, partners may play in the order the side considers best. That means when it's a player's turn to play, Either the player or his or her partner may play next. There's certain restrictions there that deal more with etiquette than other things. Now, this is an interesting one. This is the one where your stroke has been conceded, and your partner's ball is on the same line. Let's say this young lady has a putt for a 4, and the partner is putting for a 3. Now her putt is conceded, but she putts it anyway. Now what do we do? If she putts this when it's been normally when a putt is conceded, in any other situation, it doesn't matter what you do with it. You can kick it away, pick it up, putt it out. That's okay. But in this one situation, if that happens, then his or her score for the hole stands. That's the conceded putt for 4. But the partner's score for the hole cannot count. So that putt for the 3, she's out of the hole. And the 4 is the score that's going to count for that hole. Okay? And you want to remember that. You want to tell a player, as a good competitor, or I should say as a good opponent, you might want to say to the player, if you do that, that's a violation there. And we can call for a ruling here on that. We can claim the hole, and at least let them know. Don't necessarily. I guess that's up to you, how competitive you want to be. I'd be wanting to avoid having somebody do something wrong if I could. I'm such a sport. Okay. And once again, here's these 2 dudes that want to share clubs. Well, they've got sort of a uniform on, so I guess that makes sense. Any questions there?
Not yet.
Pardon? Okay.
Yeah. No.
All right. Here we go with good old 23-8, and this is our final one today, and this will take just a little bit longer than the others, but I think I'm doing pretty well here. We have penalties other than disqualification and disqualification. When a player gets a penalty, the penalty may apply to either that player alone or to both partners, that is, to the side. And it depends on the penalty and the form of play. Okay. Normally, it applies only to the player. But you got 3 situations where it also applies to the partner. Except in the situations covered by number 2, which comes up here. So, any penalty strokes are added only to the player's score, not to the partner's score. In that situation, when they apply, obviously, only to the player. In match, a player gets the general penalty, that's loss of hold. He just has no score that can count for the side. And we used to say that player is disqualified for the hole. That caused consternation amongst players. So we now have a better way of saying it. He just doesn't have a score. But this penalty has no effect on the partner, who may continue to play for the side. You know that. Now, here we go. We delve into this 28-8A2. The 3 situations where a player's penalty also applies to the partner. When the player breaches Rule 4.1b, and that's clubs, shared, added, or replaced clubs. When you have a club situation, that is a penalty to the side. One player has 16 clubs, the side is penalized. When the player's breach helps the partner's play, and this can be very subjective, but we've tried to narrow it down. I think we've done a pretty good job. I say we, the rules of golf people, I think they've done a pretty good job of it. Or in match play, when the player's breach hurts an opponent's play. Okay. Now, in match play, the side gets the general penalty for any of those things. You make an adjustment to the match score at the end of the hole where that breach is discovered. In stroke play, the partner also gets the same penalty as the player. So you got the side in match play and both in stroke play. Now, when the player's breach helps the partner's play in either match or stroke play, the partner also gets the same penalty. Now, what would we have as an example of that? And I'm glad they threw these in here. This is an example of that. Side A, B are playing side C, D in a 4-ball match. A provides the wrong number of strokes he or she has taken to either C or D. A says to either C or D, I did this. I got the wrong number of strokes. All players are in contention during a hole. Side C and D bases its strategy on this information, and one of them makes a stroke. Well, what do you think? That's an example where side is going to get a penalty or lose a hole. In this case, player A gets the general penalty for not giving the right number of strokes, and player B is going to get the same penalty because the breach hurt an opponent's play. It changed their strategy. So in this case, side A and B therefore loses the hole because, you know, when you get the general penalty in match play, that's loss of hole. General penalty. Okay. We got giving wrong number of strokes taken or failing to tell opponent is never considered to hurt an opponent when the player is out of contention. Pay attention to this one. When a player in a 4-ball match is out of contention on a hole, you know, he's playing like a dog up the fairway, and he now obviously isn't going to have much to do with the hole. If he or she gives the wrong number of strokes taken or fails to notify an opponent about a penalty, it's never considered to hurt the opponent's play, since the player's score on the hole will not be relevant in the match. Okay. Now, this is a famous photograph that we have here. We have Ed Horde playing, who's that? David Price's ball. Player who makes a stroke with the wrong ball is not treated as having helped the partner's play or hurt the opponent's play. Only the player, not the partner, gets the general penalty. Obviously, this is true. Playing this guy's ball, you might, you know, the old saw comes in there. Oh, wait a minute. And now he knows what club to use because he's going to play here. This guy's out of the hole, but this guy's going to play. No, it doesn't matter. No penalty there. Obviously, the wrong ball guy's out of there, but okay. Or in 4-ball, he's got it correct. Player who makes a stroke at a wrong ball is not treated as having helped his partner's play. This is true whether the ball played as a wrong ball belongs to the partner, opponent, or anyone else. Now, here's the DSQ penalties. We got a breach by one partner, which could mean the side is disqualified. We got a breach by both partners, which could mean the side is disqualified, which means the side is disqualified. Or a breach by one player means that only the player has no valid score for the hole. That player has no valid score for the hole. Let's delve into that or dive into that. Now, you got to look at these as these situations occur. You can look at these, try to remember them. You've got conduct, player by the rules. You got the club situations. You got the golf ball situation, use of equipment. You got to, you know, the use of equipment. You use equipment the wrong way. Your first breach is going to be a 2-stroker or general penalty. Then any further breaches are going to be disqualification. Unreasonable delay of play. When the committee suspends play and play resumes, if you do something wrong there, and you got you could be disqualified. You start too soon. You got the teeing area rules. Okay, you got all those things. When a situation like that happens, you know, go to the book or give us a call. Now, which we have no problem handling. In match play only, You have applying handicaps and handicap match, 3-2C. In stroke play only, you have players' responsibility, certifying returning scorecard, wrong score for a hole, scoring, we went over that, practicing on the course before, between rounds, side scorecard, and stroke play. We're going to get into that's going to be interesting here. Starting and ending round, playing in groups. Both partners get a penalty for disqualification for doing these things. One players may or must stop play. Sides disqualified in stroke play if at the same hole both partners get penalties of disqualification under any combination of these rules. So some player fails to hole out, another player plays a wrong ball, doesn't correct it. You're going to have then you've got a trunk slamming situation there. Okay. When the breach by one player means only that that player has no valid score for the hole. In all the situations where a player breaches a rule with a penalty of disqualification, the player is not disqualified, but his or her score for the hole where the breach happened cannot count for the side. And we used to call that your DSQ for that hole, and it wasn't clear. So we changed it to this. It's much, much better. In match play, if both partners breach such a rule on the same hole, side loses the hole. Now let's go over this question. In 4-ball play, which one of the following is false? If your partner discovers he has more than 14 clubs during the round, both you and your partner get the penalty for the breach of Rule 4.1b. We're looking for false again here. I just love that. When a rule requires you to drop, replace, or place your ball, your partner can do any of these things for you. Is that false? If your partner causes your ball to move when a penalty applies, your partner gets the one-stroke penalty. If you play a wrong ball, you get the general penalty, but your partner is never penalized, even when the wrong ball you played was your partner's ball. We went over that a lot of times. Let's see what the answer is, gang. It's C. If your partner causes your ball to move, you're going to get the penalty, not your partner. And you'll proceed from that situation. Any questions on those two parts of this?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, folks, I think we've covered the entire thing. And if we have any further questions, we have lots of time, 20 minutes. We will, I'll be glad to entertain them now.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself and ask them in person.
Or you can call me later. You all have my number. I hope you all have my number. If you don't have my number, I'm going to give it to you now. It's 570-233-5329. And you can call me any hour. If it has to do with rules, you can call me any hour of the day or night. Okay. Tom, you there?
I'm here. Yeah. I mean, if anybody has any questions about any rule, not just what we covered today, certainly now would be the time to get it on the table while we're here. And
yeah,
this has been great. I think I figured today would be a smaller number because we're back playing golf, which is a good thing. And but we appreciate everybody jumping online and drinking the rules Kool-Aid.
Yes.
Hey,
Thanks. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, hey, Tom, thanks to you and Clarky and Matt for organizing. This has been really good education stuff, and it's given us something to do as we've been housebound. And now that the weather's getting better and we're back playing golf, the timing ended up being just about right.
Thanks, Alice.
Thanks, Alice.
And I have to say, we are lucky. We are lucky to have on our local rules committee. we have 4 members of the National Rules Committee. Of course, Tom, Alice, Mr. Jeff, Kitty, and myself. And we are lucky in that respect.
I think we got the strongest section rules committee, don't you? I'd like to think that.
Oh, undoubtedly. Undoubtedly.
Clarky, did you get all your carts washed and disinfected?
Yeah, all the carts are. We figured out how to do it, and we're doing it with bleach, and we hit some bleach. I want them to smell the bleach, so at least they have the appearance that it has been done. I mean, I'm sure you could go back there and not do a damn thing and just wet them down, bring them out. You might be bringing COVID out to the people, but I have that stinky bleach on them, and so we do that, and no, it hasn't been too bad. It's very simple to put the carts out for at the beginning of the day, because you only have the one group coming down, and they know what to do. But I have to have a little extra help to wash and clean them later on. But other than that, it hasn't been too bad. I have to say that I'm at odds with the directive about a husband and wife not being able to share a cart. I mean, I don't see the validity of that or why that would come about, but it makes no sense to me.
I think, Clark, this is me pontificating, but I think that comes probably from it's going to be difficult to police that, people saying that they've been living together or whatever, and they're not. So I think they're just erring on the side of extreme caution. I would imagine those rules will be loosened as we go along, as long as there isn't any additional spikes in the state.
I think some spouses might welcome that. They might continue that for the remainder of perpetuity.
Oh, Tom.
Oh boy.
All
Definitely
right.
some of my members would feel that way.
If nobody has any more questions about the rules, I just have a couple of quick things to mention. First of all, thanks to Clark for presenting today, and Tom and the entire Rules Committee for organizing these 9 sessions. It's been fantastic, and I think the membership has gotten a lot out of them. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback about the rules webinars specifically. We do have one more webinar on the books right now. That's Monday. That's for doubles golf and PJ Junior League. That'll be an intro to doubles golf, a new program from the guys who brought us Junior League golf, and kind of a Q&A, an update from PJ Junior League. So if you want to attend that, that's Monday the 11th at 9 a.m. We are going to be considering adding new webinars, but we're taking it kind of day by day or week by week right now, since everybody is open back up. We expect the demand to be a lot less, and we think that is a good thing. But should any new webinars be added to the schedule, you will receive an email about that. Additionally, today, while we were on this webinar, I just wanted to let anyone know who's a 1099 employee or independent contractor in Pennsylvania, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program is now fully operational. We'll be sending an email out about that soon. But if you're a 1099 employee, you now can apply for unemployment assistance, and that is retroactive, leading up to the end of January. So obviously, if you're working now, that we're back, but you weren't working for a number of weeks, you may qualify for assistance there. So we'll be sending links out to that shortly. So if nobody else has any questions, I'd like to thank everyone for their time, particularly to Clark. And we hope everyone remains safe the rest of this week and weekend on the golf course.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt, for everything.
Yep. Thank you for everything.
Hey, Clark,
Stay safe, everybody.
Following on Saturday.